Newfoundland and Labrador, the ruggedly beautiful rock at Canada's eastern edge, is facing a crisis. It's a crisis of affordability, accessibility, and basic human dignity. Two fundamental pillars of society, housing and healthcare, are crumbling, and the people of Newfoundland and Labrador are paying the price. This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet or statistics in a report. It's about real people, families struggling to keep a roof over their heads, seniors forced to choose between medication and food, the sick waiting months, even years for essential medical care. The situation is dire. Yet, amidst the despair, a flicker of hope remains. The power to ignite change rests in the hands of the people. This is Newfoundland and Labrador's fight for its future, a fight for the soul of its communities. The housing market in Newfoundland and Labrador is a runaway train. Prices are skyrocketing, leaving many stranded and priced out of their own communities. The average house price has surged, placing immense pressure on individuals and families already struggling with the rising cost of living. The reasons behind this are complex. Increased immigration and inter-provincial migration have brought new faces to the province, but also greater demand for housing. Low interest rates, while intended to stimulate the economy, have fueled a real estate frenzy. The result? A classic case of demand far exceeding supply. But the problem isn't just affordability, it's the sheer lack of options. Rental vacancy rates are abysmally low, leaving those seeking rentals in a constant state of uncertainty and vulnerability. The dream of homeownership is slipping further and further away for many, replaced by a harsh reality of bidding wars, sky-high rents, and a constant sense of precarity. The obvious solution to a housing shortage is, of course, to build more housing. But in Newfoundland and Labrador, that solution is hampered by a frustrating reality. We're not building enough. And even when we try, we can't find enough people to do the building. A chronic labor shortage in the construction industry has thrown a wrench in the gears of progress. Skilled tradespeople are in high demand but short supply, leading to project delays, inflated costs, and a bottleneck in the development of new housing. The government has set ambitious targets for new housing starts, but the numbers tell a different story. We're falling woefully short of what's needed to keep pace with demand, let alone make a dent in the existing shortage. This isn't just about bricks and mortar, it's about building a future where everyone has a place to call home. And right now, that future is looking increasingly uncertain. The housing crisis in Newfoundland and Labrador isn't uniform. It wears different faces in different parts of the province. Each region tells a different story, reflecting the unique challenges and opportunities that shape its housing landscape. In urban centers like St. John's, the problem is one of runaway growth. The city is expanding rapidly, with new buildings and developments springing up almost overnight. Prices are soaring, competition is fierce, and the very character of the city is changing before our eyes. Longtime residents are finding it harder to keep up with the escalating costs, and the influx of new people is transforming neighborhoods. But venture beyond the city limits, and you'll encounter a different kind of crisis. Rural areas are facing stagnation, with little to no new development. In rural Newfoundland and Labrador, the issue isn't necessarily skyrocketing prices, but rather a lack of any development at all. Many homes sit empty, and entire communities are at risk of disappearing. Small towns and villages, once the lifeblood of the province, are struggling to attract and retain residents. Young people are leaving in search of better opportunities, and the aging population left behind faces increasing isolation. This rural-urban divide is further exacerbated by the healthcare crisis. Urban centers have more resources and facilities, while rural areas are left with dwindling services. As healthcare services in rural areas dwindle, people are forced to move to urban centers to access basic medical care. This migration puts even more pressure on urban housing markets while further hollowing out rural communities. The cycle of decline continues, making it harder for rural areas to recover. It's a vicious cycle that threatens the very fabric of Newfoundland and Labrador society. Addressing this complex issue requires a multifaceted approach, balancing growth and development across both urban and rural areas. Section 5, Healthcare on the Brink, a System in Distress. The healthcare system in Newfoundland and Labrador is in a state of crisis. It's a story of staff shortages, endless wait times, and a system stretched to its breaking point. The people of Newfoundland and Labrador, known for their resilience and stoicism, are being failed by the very system that's supposed to care for them. Hospitals are overcrowded, emergency rooms are overwhelmed, doctors and nurses are overworked and underappreciated. The wait times for specialist appointments can stretch for months, even years, leading to delayed diagnoses, untreated illnesses, and a profound sense of despair. The shortage of healthcare professionals is dire. Recruitment and retention are constant battles, with many healthcare workers choosing to leave the province for better opportunities and a less stressful work environment. Those who remain are left to pick up the slack, their dedication and compassion tested daily by a system on the verge of collapse. Section 6, Political Inertia, the Silent Killer of Progress. The housing and healthcare crises in Newfoundland and Labrador are not just accidents of fate, they are the direct result of political choices, or more accurately, the lack thereof. These issues have been festering for years, ignored by those in power who have chosen to turn a blind eye to the suffering of their constituents. Years of inaction, short-sighted policies, and a blatant disregard for the needs of ordinary people have brought us to this precipice. The decay of public infrastructure and the neglect of essential services are stark reminders of the consequences of political inertia. There's plenty of blame to go around. Politicians from all sides have failed to rise to the occasion, preferring to engage in partisan bickering rather than finding real solutions. Successive governments have failed to address the root causes of these crises, choosing instead to apply band-aid solutions that do little to address the underlying problems. Protests and public outcry have been met with empty promises and half-hearted measures. The current administration, despite its promises of change, has so far failed to deliver any meaningful solutions. Their speeches and rallies are filled with grandiose statements, but the reality on the ground remains unchanged. The political response to these crises has been characterized by a distinct lack of urgency. Politicians seem more concerned with maintaining their leisurely pace and comfortable positions than addressing the pressing needs of the people. Empty promises abound, but concrete action is nowhere to be found. Campaign posters and podiums stand as silent witnesses to the unfulfilled commitments made to the public. It's a tale as old as time. Politicians more concerned with clinging to power than actually serving the people who elected them. The history of Newfoundland and Labrador is replete with examples of leaders who have prioritized their own interests over those of their constituents. And the people of Newfoundland and Labrador are tired of it. They are demanding real change, not just more rhetoric. The time for action is now, and the citizens are ready to hold their leaders accountable. Section 7, The Human Cost, Lives Upended by Crisis. The housing and healthcare crises in Newfoundland and Labrador are not just abstract policy issues, they are real-life tragedies unfolding every day. Behind the statistics and the headlines are real people whose lives have been upended by these failures of governance. Families are being torn apart by the housing crisis. Young people are forced to leave the province they love in search of affordable housing. Seniors are struggling to afford rent on fixed incomes. The dream of homeownership has become an impossibility for many. The healthcare crisis is also exacting a heavy toll. People are suffering needlessly due to delayed treatments and inadequate care. The mental health crisis, fueled by the stress and uncertainty of these overlapping crises, is reaching epidemic proportions. The very fabric of Newfoundland and Labrador society is fraying at the seams. Section 8. Apathy is not an option. Time to demand better. The housing and healthcare crises in Newfoundland and Labrador are dire, but they are not insurmountable. The power to ignite change rests in the hands of the people. Apathy is not an option. It's time to demand better from our elected officials and ourselves. This is not the time for complacency or resignation. It's time to channel the legendary resilience and determination of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, and demand accountability from our leaders. Attend town hall meetings, write to your elected officials, make your voices heard. This is not just about complaining, it's about demanding solutions. We need innovative policies, increased investment, and a commitment to putting the needs of people before politics. We need leaders who understand the urgency of the situation and are willing to take bold action to address it. Section 9. Our future, our fight. A call to action. The housing and healthcare crises in Newfoundland and Labrador are at a tipping point. The lack of affordable housing and the strain on our healthcare system are issues that affect us all. The choices we make today will determine the future of our province for generations to come. It's not just about us, but about the legacy we leave for our children and grandchildren. This is our future, our fight. We must come together as a community to address these pressing issues. Let's choose to fight for a brighter tomorrow, a tomorrow where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. Support organizations working on the front lines of these crises. Volunteer your time, donate what you can, and amplify their message. Every little bit helps and can make a significant difference. Educate yourself and others about the issues. Knowledge is power, and by understanding the challenges we face, we can better advocate for change. Engage in constructive dialogue and work together to find solutions. Open communication is key to building a stronger, more resilient community. Remember, change rarely comes from the top down, it starts from the ground up. Grassroots movements have the power to create lasting impact. It starts with each and every one of us raising our voices, demanding better, and refusing to settle for the status quo, and working together to create the kind of Newfoundland and Labrador we want to live in, a place where everyone has a safe and affordable place to call home, a place where community spirit thrives, and access to quality healthcare. Healthcare that is accessible to all, regardless of their background or financial situation. Our future depends on it. The actions we take today will shape the Newfoundland and Labrador of tomorrow.